Well, then word spreads to others, do not bother those people. They've got 500,000 and they will eliminate you. That's why the preventative measures, sadd al-dhara'i, and that's why some of the Hanafi fuqaha allowed and pushed hard for Abdul Qadir Khan to get the nuclear bomb for Pakistan. Preventative. Why? Because it's better if we think that the Indians may do something that we drop it first on them. Because we need to have preventative measures. They're less likely to invade if they know that we have not a nuclear bomb, but nuclear bombs. It's easier and more preventative. And so those Hanafi ulama said they should get it and pushed for them to get it. Whereas, say, some of the Shafi'i scholars wouldn't. So in countries that are predominantly Shafi'i, they've generally tried to get them not to have it. Because mutually assured destruction has been a principle that a lot of the Shafi'i ulama, they don't like that because, okay, they drop it on us and then we drop it on them. But what does that mean? That's the end of everything. Or possibly the end of everything. The Hanafi scholars say, no, it won't, because the day of resurrection must come. Humanity must go on until the day of resurrection. So if we drop it on them, we know the day of judgment is not going to come straight away, because humanity must live until that time. And so we're going from the qadr of Allah to the qadr of Allah, and we're dropping it on them because it's the qadr of Allah. And that's their position. And I respect that. You have to respect the Hanafi scholars because they're thinking pragmatically. India's next door. Bangladesh seceded. India's next door. Kashmir's been absorbed into all types of madness. So what the Hanafi scholars are saying is get the bomb. Because what's next? They absorb Sindh? Northwest frontier? What are they going to absorb? What other province are they going to absorb? That's what they're thinking. So it's always sadd al-dhara'i. They're thinking of preventative measures. Now, other ulama who also died during this time, but we'll mention one person. His name is Mikhail al-Aslami. He was executed as he became a Muslim after having been a Christian, and then sought to bring other Muslims to Christianity through covert means. The charges were brought, and 49 witnesses from all walks of life were brought forward in 789 AH when he was executed. Okay, so there are people back then and now who become or say that they've become Muslim or Christians and will go to try to subvert Muslims and to convert them to Christianity. And so this person, when it was found out what he was doing, he was held on trial like everyone else deserves. They had 49 witnesses, went through all the structure, went through everything else. And then when it was found that this was the case, he was executed. Just the same way that Jahm ibn Safwan and Ja'ad ibn Dirham, they were executed for spreading the belief that the Qur'an was created, because it was to stop tribulation from coming to the population in which the whole society could be brought down. So sometimes people get punished by a death sentence because the whole society could be brought down. Rape, which is the death penalty according to many fuqaha, is because it's an attack on society in general. You attack and you attack, the woman's never going to forget that. Armed robbery is the death penalty. Crack and dope smuggling is the death. If they catch you doing that in the Gulf, they know that you've got drugs, you're going to die. Now, that's because of what it represents, an attack on society. And those ulama think and they say that this must be stopped. It's got to be stopped. And this was an example, this Mikhail al-Aslami. There are other examples of people who have done the same thing today in our midst, that say we've become Muslim. Sometimes people that have sincerely become Muslim and they've come into the deen and with lack of knowledge have caused incalculable damage. Incalculable damage. And so that's why you have to think and always pay attention to what's going on around you. Other people who died during this time. Sharafuddin al-Kurdi, who was a Hanafi scholar. Very few Kurds are Hanafi. Very few. Most Kurds are Shafi'is because of Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi and Nuruddin Zinki and others. So he's a rarity. A Kurdi Hanafi scholar is a rarity. Minhajuddin al-Rumi, Hanafi scholar. They both died in 791 AH. You have Abu Ishaq Ash-Shatibi al-Ghurnati, who's a great Maliki scholar of Andalus. He died 795 AH. He dies 795 AH. Now, Imam Al-Shatibi, Abu Ishaq Ash-Shatibi rahimahullah was from Gharnata, which is today called Granada. He was from a family of high-ranking Maliki ulama. He is considered perhaps one of the greatest usuliyun, scholars who wrote on usul al-fiqh, that ever lived. His most famous works are Al-Muwafaqat, the points of agreement, where he contrasts between the different positions in fiqh, in usul al-fiqh, and another book called Al-I'tisam. Al-I'tisam Billah, that book, take the firm handhold to what Allah has given and to Allah. That book explains what is innovation, why does it happen, how does it happen, the difference between a valid innovation in science and math and other things, and impermissible innovations, how people fall into innovations, when people accidentally commit innovation and don't realize it, and then it becomes a custom among them. He goes into all the depth on these matters. And then he sums everything up with a discussion on who is the safe sect. Who is Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah? Who is the safe sect? He discusses who the cults are. I've looked at Al-Muwafaqat and Al-I'tisam. And just as a reader, I would probably say that Al-I'tisam is his greatest work. Because the issue of innovation, he's so precise and so sharp and so to the point. Every single statement that he makes is just a few sentences long. And you can just sit and reflect on that. It's so profound. Imam Ash-Shatibi. And if you mention his name around people that know anything about usul, you say, yes, what do you say about Imam Ash-Shatibi? Straight away, oh yes, he's a great, wonderful alim. He's a wonderful scholar. He's done this, he's done that. I studied Al-Muwafaqat when I was doing my final year at Iftah class or whatever. They've heard of him. Because Imam Al-Shatibi, he was one of the first ulama to start to witness the reconquista, the reconquest of Spain by the Catholic Church. He started to witness it. He witnessed the bodies dug up of deceased Muslims and stabbed with javelins. He witnessed people being killed. They would take them out and say, show us your penises. They would say this to the Muslims, the males. And if they found they were circumcised, they killed them. They killed them straight away. They would tell them, if we see you making a ghusl or heading to a bathhouse on Friday, they would close the bathhouses in certain cities. If we see you going there, we're going to kill you. And so sometimes they would just go in and they would kill all the Muslim men in the bathhouse who were going into these stalls to have a shower for ghusl, for Jum'ah. They'd kill them. Every single aspect of Islam, he watched some cities start to fall to the Reconquista and the tribulation that came from that, from Ferdinand and Isabella, that would later speed up that process. But he witnessed a lot of the early signs of it. 1492 AD, which is coming soon, inshallah, on our notes, that was sort of a seminal time. From 1492 to 1699 is where it was full demolition of the Muslim places. In 1699, between 1.2 and 1.6 million Muslims were expelled from Spain and Portugal. And they were told to carry their dead with them. That's why there's no Umayyad. Why is it that we ruled there for 950 years and all the Umayyad rulers are buried in Morocco and Algeria and Mauritania? What on earth are they doing there? Well, because we had to take them with us. Qurtubi, he's not from Morocco, but he's buried there. Imam Al-Qadi Iyad, he's not from there, but he's buried in Morocco. Why is he buried in Morocco? He's from Andalus, because they made us dig up the bodies of our people and move them. So you should understand what's coming. And Imam Ash-Shatibi already was seeing glimpses of what was coming. Another scholar, Zainab bint al-Harraniya, she's the niece of Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahumullah. She died in 799 AH. She was a memorizer of hadith. Some records put her knowledge at 200,000, some 300,000. Allahu alam which one it was. But she had extensive knowledge of hadith. Extensive. Far more than 100,000. Extensive knowledge of hadith, usul fiqh, and she took after her uncle in terms of studying the different sciences of sources of differences of opinion. You have Jamaluddin Az-Zarnadi, the great Hanafi scholar in 800 AH. You have Alauddin Al-Ba'ali, who died in 803 AH. Now, Alauddin Al-Ba'ali, he wrote a number of books. Probably his most famous one is Al-Ikhtiyarat Al-Fiqhiyya min Fatawa Sheikh Al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. In this, what he did is he took Imam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, all of his books, and he fleshed out the most beneficial points and put them in this small volume. He was a student of another alim, who I'll talk about in just a moment. And he wound up being the qadi and judge over 5 countries. Similar to Ibn Kathir. Over 5 countries, he was the qadi and the judge, fatwa writer for them as well. So he would receive bags of mail, sit down over the weekend, answer them, and try to have them sent back. Imam Alauddin Al-Ba'ali, what stands out about him is he walked a middle path with regards to Imam Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. There are some people who took a path in which they declared him outrightly they declared him a kafir or an innovator. They would just say Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah is a kafir, he's an innovator. He did not walk that line. There were some people who took the line that he was the greatest scholar that ever lived, or one of the greatest scholars that ever lived. He walked a middle line between that. That he was a magnificent scholar, but that he wasn't a kafir. And that he'll distill from his writings the best of it. And that's what al-Ikhtiyarat al-Fiqhiyya is to rescue Ibn Taymiyyah from his admirers and his detractors. And to put him in his proper historical context as a faqih, as a mujtahid murajjih, and to present him as how he is. And you can see sometimes some of the fiqhi things that Imam Ibn Taymiyyah will mention. And Imam Al-Ba'ali will come right behind him and say, now you must remember, this is a minority situation that he has mentioned, and it's a rare issue. So rare that he is the only one that's ever stated it. So he'll make statements like that, but in a respectful tone. In a very, very respectful tone. So in tackling the issue of 3 talaq said in one sitting, Imam Al-Ba'ali was very careful, because wrong or not, is still an alim, still a mujtahid. So you have to be careful how you address and how you treat a mujtahid, because this is a person in the hadith in the Sahih of Imam Muslim who the Prophet ﷺ says when he's right he gets 1 reward, he gets 2 rewards, and when he's wrong he gets 1. This is these type of people. So you have to be careful about what you say about them. So Imam Al-Ba'ali, remarkable scholar, he dealt with that topic very well. Now his teacher is Imam Abdul Rahman Jamaluddin ibn Rajab Al-Hanbali rahimahullah. Imam Rajab Al-Hanbali, I think there's probably 2 of his books translated into English. One of them that has to do with the heirs or the inheritors of the prophets, that's in English. The translation is decent. The Jami' al-Ulum wal-Hikam is almost neutered, because his discussion on the narrators of the hadith has been deleted. And his commentary hasn't fully been left in place. So you're only getting sort of the juice, but not all the meat from the soup. Ibn Rajab, he is number 3 voice in the school of Imam Ahmed rahimahullah, after Imams Muwafiquddin and after Imam Majduddin ibn Taymiyyah. He is on record of having the level of 700,000 ahadith memorized. 700,000. And he wasn't mujtahid murajjih either. But he's memorized more than Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim. By his memorization of hadith, he's on par with the students of Imam Ahmed. 700,000, that's how much Abu Bakr al-Athram memorized. That's more than Bukhari memorized. That's more than Abu Dawood memorized. That's more than what Muslim memorized. Imam Rajab Al-Hanbali rahimahullah. His book on Usul al-Fiqh, normally Usul al-Fiqh books are volume, 2 volumes. His is 6. And he says, I'm only doing this book